Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, distinguished guests, folks of all stripes, and all the little doggies, put your hands together for Space Cadets Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Salazar Jr. You can find me on social media at Space Cadet Sports on Instagram. It's been some time since we last had a podcast, and we are a bit beat up over here. I'm here joined with my co-host, Carla the dog. I am back in studio in Los Angeles. And yeah, it was a very windy day in Kansas City, and the Astros got swept by the Royals. It definitely was tough. It was a tough look, folks. The Royals, for whatever reason, have definitely had our number these last couple years. And I think I don't say for whatever reason to be mean to them. It's just that this season they definitely have a much better squad than in previous past. So, maybe last couple seasons it's us playing down to their level. Maybe this season they're ready to show us up, ready to show how good they've gotten. So I just mean more of like a variety of reasons as to maybe why they've played us so well in recent years. And yeah, obviously this is not ideal. The Astros are now sitting on a 4-10 record. So yeah, a lot of the positivity I had in my voice earlier in other podcasts this week is it's still there. We're still going to remain positive. We are going to look at least on how this team can grow. We're not just I hate severely negative sports. We're not going to boo people or call them chumps or anything like that. But we are going to take a realistic look at what the Astros can do going forward, perhaps, at least from a fan's perspective here. That's the thing I think we all need to remember. A lot of us out here are fans. We have a fan's perspective. So yeah, we're going to do the fan perspective here, and with just remembering that, this is still my team. I was a Houston Astros. I've been a Houston Astros fan my whole life. I definitely wasn't a Houston Astros fan during that run where we were losing 100 games a season. I went to Dodger Stadium, I believe in 2012 when we had a really rough season, wearing my Astros gear. So I've been for the good here for the good. I've been here for the bad. If you're someone who is really struggling and wanting to be really negative, there's places for you. That isn't here. This is for the diehards that are going to stick through no matter what. And, we're going to try to remain positive even if the games aren't really bouncing our way right now. And, it was a tough one today for Hunter Brown. It's kind of hard to really sit here and recap this blowout, It was a rough game. It seemed really unlucky. Kansas City got 9 runs up in the first inning on Hunter Brown. Hunter Brown only lasted, I believe, 2/3 of an inning. I'm checking the box score right now. Yeah, he got 2/3 of an inning, 11 hits, 9 runs, 9 earned runs, a walk, no strikeouts. And his ERA on this young season is now 16.43. So Hunter Brown had a really rough outing, and this is on the tail of Spencer Arrighetti making his major league debut and having a tough outing. And this isn't that many games away from Framber Valdez getting injured. The Astros calling up Blair Henley, and Blair Henley, the sacrificial lamb, having an excruciating outing. So there has been some tough starting pitching for the Houston Astros lately, and that has meant that the Astros have had to be very creative with their bullpen. And frankly, their bullpen has been overtaxed. So, where last week I was like, we have some questions in our middle relief, a lot of those questions have been answered. We're seeing that these guys can get outs, that they do have major league stuff. They're being leaned on very heavily right now. Some might say like that, it's a little unfair to expect, excellent results out of all of their performances, being how heavily taxed their arms have been, because they're not usually called upon to do that. But those kind of question marks I had of Seth Martinez and Brandon Belak and Taylor Scott. These guys have really stepped up this week, and I think that's very encouraging to see. I mean, it's tough to see the Astros come out of the gate 4-10 here, but the Astros, for whatever reason, seem to start their season by putting themselves in the hole and kind of getting their backs against the wall, and they play great that way. I mean, this game they weren't able to bounce back like they were the Blair Hindley game, but that Blair Hindley game was just such a confidence game that it's like, don't worry, we got you. We got your back. We're going to pick you up. And they can go out there and they can play very well with their backs against the wall. Obviously, today we didn't get that outcome. Today was a very windy, very weird day. There was a lot of long outs. There was a lot of home runs or extra base hits that ended up being pop outs for the Astros. The Astros ended up getting 11 hits in the game. They had 5 walks on the game and only 6 strikeouts as a team. However, the Houston Astros simultaneously were 2 for 13 with runners in scoring position and had 13 left on base. So it was a wonky game. The umpire also started calling a very lazy strike zone at some point. That's really difficult to focus on getting quality at bats when the strike zone's kind of moving around. I'm not trying to blame it all on the umpire and on the officiating, but truly, like we need a wins above replacement for umpires at some point, because it's like, this guy just seems to be. At first, I was like, this guy wants to go home early. He's just going to call a lot of balls for strikes, and then he just kind of was all over the place and confusing, and that's definitely, that's not what the players want. Consistency, man. Like if you're gonna be calling bad calls, at least call them consistently. This guy was just kind of all over the place. But whether it was a little bit of bad luck or a little bit of just lack of focus, whatever you want to call it, the Astros really struggled in this game to get the big hits where the big hits needed to be. So that's definitely very frustrating. I'm very I'm very optimistic still on this offense as a whole. I do think that there are some issues, obviously, in the offense. But as a whole, I really have seen, kind of a little bit of bad luck with the pop-outs. I've seen a little over-aggression when perhaps it would have been better for them to be patient. And then in Jordan's case, sometimes I've seen some patience where you were just hoping that he'd rip one. So there's definitely been some moments, but on the whole, the way that the offense is running, the way that people are approaching their at-bats has been looking good and has been looking like the Astros baseball that I know. However, some of these teams are going out there and have been attacking our starting pitching in ways that, as Astros fans, we don't want to see. So I think, let's get to the starting pitching here, because really, I was talking about the middle relief and the long relief last week, but really right now, after this week we've had, we're going to need some depth in our bullpen for sure, but we're worried more about starting pitching. The Houston Astros currently have a all-star lineup of starting pitchers on the IL. We have Justin Verlander, Framber Valdez, Lance McCullers Jr., Luis Garcia, and Jose Urquidy, all on the IL right now. If that was our starting pitching rotation, we definitely would be feeling a lot more confident, as that's kind of, no disrespect to the guys that we have pitching right now. Those guys generally, if we're looking at the show ratings, for the last couple years on average, those guys would be the top of the rotation guys, if you threw all these pitchers in a group here. But who we have starting, is kind of like our B team, if you will. And that's not to say that they're not talented guys. Have you been watching Ronel Blanco? I'm just saying that traditionally, at least at the start of the season, or from a general manager's point of view, they were relying on different arms in their starting pitching. At least during some parts of winter, they weren't anticipating this many injuries. So yeah, let's take a look at that, because who do we have in right now for those starting pitchers? So if, who would be the second team up, as it were? And so that's going to be Christian Javier, obviously, who has been great. I think Christian Javier is looking towards a bounce back season. However, I think part of the reason why guys like Christian Javier and Hunter Brown had troubles last season is that the Astros relied on them for more innings than they were used to in their career. And right now, Christian Javier and Hunter Brown, to a little bit lesser of extent, are sitting in a position where they are being asked to pitch a lot of innings because we need them during these long runs and stretches of games here to kind of pick up the slack for our bullpen. Unfortunately, Hunter Brown really struggled with that today. In a game where Joe Espada really could have used some depth. We had a Gray Kessinger sighting. Gray Kessinger came in and he pitched the bottom of the eighth. He was throwing 73, 74-mile-an-hour pitches. He had a 1-2-3 inning. So congrats, shout out to Gray Kessinger. It's tough to be the position player on the mound. You definitely feel like a sacrificial lamb. You don't want to embarrass yourself. But also you gotta kind of bite the bullet as a utility guy. As I definitely will talk about playing baseball on this podcast, but I want to make it very clear that my baseball career wasn't very storied. At a very young age, I realized the limits of my baseballing as much as I loved it and turned to entertainment. Maybe I could just play a baseball player on TV, But when I played baseball, there were some seasons where I was that super utility guy. So it's kind of a rough position to kind of like get yourself in that headspace to go out there. So shout out to Gray Kessinger, who had a nice little performance there on a tough game for the Astros. But we're looking at our pitching staff here, and Hunter Brown struggled to get that length. Also, as our third pitcher, if you will, maybe would be J.P. France, or perhaps people would put him as a second pitcher because of how consistent he's been. But in terms of the organization, they definitely rated Hunter Brown and his stuff a little higher than J.P. France. And maybe like a higher ceiling type of thing, generally in the scouting world, is what I'm trying to say. But J.P. France has been great, and J.P. France has kind of been a great inning eater for the Astros. And in this position, we have needed an inning eater. We need lots of innings to be eaten. We have plenty of them. J.P. France, thank you. We also have Ronel Blanco, who's been great at this young season. Ronel Blanco, I really forget. I'm blanking right now, but Ronel Blanco was rated in the power rankings for pitchers in the top 10 this season, this young season already. So Ronel Blanco's come out of the gate, basically pitching some no-hit baseball. He's just low hit baseball, I should say, because he did give up a hit there. But he's pitching really good baseball, and it's looking to be surprising to some people in the league. Maybe not so surprising to General Manager Dana Brown, who's been talking very, very highly of him. But it's good to see Ronel Blanco out there. So the Houston starting pitching has definitely, not been the same group of guys that we're kind of used to seeing, and yeah, like because of. We also called up Spencer Arrighetti. He's now our sixth-man starter. Spencer Arrighetti, he's kind of a stat head. I read an interview with him on Fangraphs. You should go check that out. That was very interesting, just to see him talking about pitch shapes and analytics and how much you use in analytics versus how much you kind of use your gut, if you will. I don't think he uses that phrase, to be honest, but kind of like how you balance analytics and kind of like the old way of looking at things. So Spencer Arrighetti came up. He had his first start. So So those are kind of the guys that we're looking at right now. And truly, and yeah, we did call up on that Fromber game. I did mention we called up minor leaguer Blair Henley to spot start the game in Arlington, and that was such a huge ask. I definitely had felt for Blair Henley. He was expecting to make his second AAA start of his career, and instead, he got asked to go do his best against a team that he probably hadn't very much preparation for, and in his hometown in a hostile environment. I'm sure that wasn't very fun. And you could look at those results that he got, and with a little bit of embarrassment, or you could look at it with a little bit of empathy. I mean, look, we ended up winning the game. Okay, so we could be happy about that. I mean, this poor guy is going to have to work really hard to get another opportunity like this. The first one he got was kind of just in a position where they just needed the best, freshest arm in the organization, and that happened to be him. And he kind of had to fall on his sword. So we're rooting for Blair Henley. We hope that he can keep developing, and we'll see him again. It'd be great. That'd be such a great story to see him back up in the organization. But for now, we're not kind of projecting Blair Henley to be a guy that we're looking at even as a fringe starter in this rotation. So yeah, with those guys that we're looking at, a lot of people have been critical of the back of our rotation. Obviously, hasn't had the start of their season that we'd wanted as well. Ryan Presley. Brian Abreu, and Josh Hader have had some stumbles so far. And with Josh Hader being signed for so much money, there's been a lot of fans that have been critical of the fact that maybe we shouldn't have signed a guy for the back of our bullpen when the back of our bullpen has been traditionally strong. Maybe we should have gone for some starting pitching, seeing that in the winter, we already knew that we were going to have a little bit of a lack of depth with Garcia and McCullers nursing those injuries. And sure, JV, Urquidy, and Fromber start to happen here in the spring, but maybe it would have been better if we would have just tried to sign Blake Snell for what he was asking for when we were in those negotiations. However, simultaneously, if you look at where Blake Snell has started, he hasn't been so quick to get out of the gate either. So it's kind of the grass is always greener kind of a situation in my mind. Now, I'm not saying that I'm projecting Blake Snell to have a terrible season compared to some of our starters here that I've listed. I'm not saying that whatsoever. I'm just saying I think when it comes to X-Boys on X or the AM radio call-in boomers, sometimes it's just overtly negative. And so the grass is always going to be greener if what if we got Blake Snell? And it is going to be a what if. And we'll have to see what kind of what if that is for us, whether positive or negative, probably at the end of the season, So that's just kind of an ongoing story. I, for one, I'm rooting for these guys. And to a lesser extent, I'm also rooting for Brandon Bielak. I know that I didn't kind of mention him there in the starters, but he does have the stuff to start. He has been stretched out before his start. He has had longer games. Right now, he's kind of started games almost out of the bullpen like Seth Martinez. But there is a potential for Brandon Bielak to be in that rotation at some point if we're looking at some longer term injuries here, and which we're not, but we're hoping that we're not looking at that with Fromber so far. But right now we're all holding our breath in Houston to hear what is going to be said about Fromber. We can't afford that long of an injury time with him. We do have Justin Verlander hopefully coming back up soon. We definitely do need him, but this kind of rotation is going to kind of have to figure itself out here. And, I do worry for a guy like Hunter Brown, who has had a tough start to his season so far. We definitely think a lot of Hunter Brown. He's been a highly rated prospect. We've seen what he can do. We've seen what he's capable of. But when you have Ronel Blanco kind of breathing down your neck, and when you have guys coming back from injury and J.P. Francis pitching solidly, there could be a potential for Hunter Brown to maybe move to a bullpen role for some time and continue to develop there. I think you kind of have to look at guys like Christian Javier. Christian Javier kind of bounced around from a starter role to a bullpen role, and eventually he figured it out where he could be more of a starter than a bullpen guy, even as he's figuring it out. So you just have to trust. Kind of like the meme, trust the process a little bit here and hope that Hunter Brown can figure it out. He's still making adjustments. He is a competitor. He has this stuff. Hopefully we can just make those adjustments and kind of figure out how people are approaching him so that we can make the adjustment there. But yeah, I think a lot of people are looking at what other options there can be for us as a starting pitcher, and some people have said Trevor Bauer on social media, and that's basically that's a bad word here. That's a toxic energy. The last thing this team needs right now is some bad energy and, frankly, bad press. Why would we want to sign someone who is kind of known for being a horrific human being? I'm not trying to comment too much on his legal issues and things that I think I just, where there's smoke, there's fire. And sometimes you just see a guy that has a negative energy and a bad energy. And it's like, I'm not trying to say nothing, but I just don't want to be around that bad energy. That's bad. That's bad news. It's bad vibes. We only want good vibes here. So, I think the negatives far outweigh the upside with that guy. I don't think he quite has his stuff. If he does, some team would be knocking on his door already, or he would have had to try out somewhere. So it's just like, that's not an option. Right now, the Astros are leaning on their organizational strength. They're leaning on their development. It's definitely been tough. The outings have not been to the liking of Astros fans and to the liking of Dana Brown, to Jim Crane, to Joe Espada, to Josh Miller, to the players themselves. I know we can get frustrated by these performances, but it's not. We are the guys, or people, I should say. There's lots of folks who listen to baseball. But like, we are the folks who care probably the least out of that group of people. These guys that are going up there and pitching, they take a lot of pride in their work. So hopefully they can keep working and keep making the adjustments, because a lot of them have the stuff. Obviously, they've had success in the past. I think right now it isn't quite time to start getting angry with General Manager Dana Brown about not signing Blake Snell. I think that's still kind of to be determined, if you will. That's kind of an incomplete grade right now. I'm not going to grade that at the moment, because I think it's kind of a very confident move to trust your organizational strength. Truly, when you look at the Astros, in their minor league system, which is a very low-rated system, by the way, they develop a lot of players out of there, a lot of their strength right now is starting pitching. There's not a lot of strength in relief pitching. So my thought here is that Dana Brown is like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on relief pitching in free agency, because we should have the confidence that we'll find somebody when it comes to starting pitching in our organization. And that's been a bit of a struggle so far, but hopefully we can develop that talent. Another thing people have been critical of Dana Brown about, General Manager Dana Brown about, is our first base depth. Obviously, Abreu has struggled this season. Obviously, John Singleton is not everybody's favorite player. He is getting on base. He doesn't look terrible. He can field his position, but he isn't exactly the type of first baseman that's inspiring a lot of confidence in Astros fans to kind of spell Abreu when he needs to be spelled. I think he can be that guy. I just think that fans might be asking John Singleton to play outside of himself. John Singleton, we don't want him to turn into Joey Gallo. We don't want him to swing at pitches outside of the zone and be a high strikeout guy. Right now, he's more selective. Now, that means he does, power the ball a lot less, but I would take extra base hits and some pop-ups over strikeouts any day. A strikeout is completely invaluable. A pop-up could drop. A pop-up hit to the right spot is extra bases. So, that's kind of what we're looking for from John Singleton. If we ask for more power from him at this point, from what we know from him, that might be asking for more strikeouts. Now, if you're going to argue with me that he's not, going to be the best spell first baseman, that's still to be determined, I think. He's definitely been good, but with the holes in our lineup with runners in scoring position, we've kind of been looking for great. But I don't know. Joey Loprofito is in the minor leagues right now, and a lot of people are calling for him to come up. However, I don't think Joey Loprofito is quite ready, not based off of my opinion, but based off of what I'm reading the Houston Astros are saying about him. It looks like with Loprofito, they want him to stay in the minors a little bit longer to work on his first base defense fundamentals. It doesn't seem like he quite has the footwork completely set into his body. And, I mean, at a high defensive position like first base, you really don't want to bring a guy in there just for offense and give up a lot of runs because he's figuring it out on a major league level. They're trying to do that within the organization in Sugarland. I promise you, when Joey Loprofito's defense at first base is adequate by the organization standards, he will have a shot in the big leagues. He might even have a shot earlier than that because he's such a good outfielder, or he's a good enough outfielder and such a good hitter that he may be called up just based off of them needing some offensive help or outfield help. But his path to first base clearly is defined by how well John Singleton plays. We're not going to DFA Jose Abreu. That's probably not going to happen. That's not a wise financial move at this juncture. If we're DFAing Jose Abreu, it's going to be later in the season and it's going to be very bad. It won't be good. If we're DFAing that guy, it's a sad day for Astros fans because of how poorly our season has gone. So I don't think we're DFAing Abreu. However, I do think if Loprofito, like I said, his path to success through first base is based off of how well John Singleton plays. And so far, he has not played so poorly that I think they are going to rush Loprofito through the system. They're going to continue to develop him and develop that defense at first base. But it really does look tough for Abreu right now. However, I do think we do need to have some faith. He is a smart enough player to adjust. It did adjust last season. And if you remember, the Astros really haven't done too well about having first baseman performing well offensively during the regular seasons the last couple of years. Yuli Gurriel, famously with his last season with us, struggled offensively his last season until late in the season, and then he got good in the playoffs, And the same thing with Abreu last season, almost hilariously, the same storyline. Abreu really struggled during the regular season, and towards the end, he started putting it together, really had a solid postseason. So, if that's what we're getting this season, that's fine that they kept with the script a little bit, However, we're not projected to win. We're not projected to have a very goodness, what am I trying to say? We're not projected to win the division by a lot. We were projected to win by a little bit, earlier in the season. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now. However, what I'm trying to say is that every game is going to count a little bit more, so it's much harder to get this slow start out the gate in the beginning of the season. So they're definitely looking to rest Abreu more so he can focus on getting better and focus on resting his body and coming back stronger and making those adjustments. We've already seen John Singleton start a good amount of games for Abreu, so it hasn't just been rest is basically what I'm saying. I think a couple of those games, it's like, hey, Abreu, I think you're gonna rest this one and kind of like get out of your own head a little bit. Let's see here. I have it up. I have John Singleton's appeared in 9 games. I believe probably about 8 I would say maybe seven of those he started. I'm sorry about that. I can't see it. The multitasking right now by myself is kind of tough. But anyway, I'm saying John Singleton has played a little bit more for Abreu than you would anticipate him for, and I think that's a good thing. However, Abreu's also batted as low as 8th. So, this kind of hole in our offense right now that is kind of the first base position is tough. However, I do think these guys have the potential to turn it around. They're both veteran guys. They're both guys that can get on base. And on this team, if they can just get on base, if they can draw a walk, if they can just get a bloop hit, if they can just pass the baton to the next guy, they have a spot on our roster. I think sometimes when you're trying to do too much and there's a lot of strikeouts and you're leaving guys on base, we can't have much more of that, because that's what we've been doing a lot of so far this season. We need to get timelier hits. I think that's just a thing that is difficult to do. But we do need to get, when men are on base, we need to start driving them in more, because we need more offense. We're getting hits. We're having some good games as a team, but sometimes we're just not following through in those big moments. And that's what the Astros do, though. They kind of limp out of the gate and they get their backs against the wall and they start playing great. They're famous for being great with 2 outs and 2 strikes. And as the game gets bigger, as the moment gets bigger, for some reason, that's when they play their best. So when the stakes aren't as high, they kind of, take it easy a bit more, I guess. I don't know. I really can't say, I'm not diagnosing them, but it does seem like whenever they're in the bigger moments, when the moment's at its biggest, they tend to get the best results out of themselves. So hopefully the Astros can start, thinking at least that, hey, this at bat, we're Game 7 of World Series. I have two strikes and we have 2 outs. I gotta hit a solid hit in the gap. I really don't know. I do think that it's needed. But I don't know what it is. Maybe it is just a mentality shift. Maybe it's just maybe it's just that they need to be less aggressive in those moments. I can't tell. Sometimes their strategy does change from moment to moment and game to game. So to talk about it this generally, it's hard. But sometimes these games just have been rough when they have been playing decent Astros baseball. Some of there's been some games they haven't, but when they play decent Astros baseball and they seem to still find a way to get beaten or to just to limp off, in the end of their game, and there's not enough offense to close the game out. But I'm positive here that they're going to turn it around. We have a series against the Rangers coming up. We're going to be playing them at home. So I'm really hoping that this is where we just shake some of this bad juju off. We're going to win some games at Minute Maid Park. We're going to win some decisive wins against the Rangers. And I'm hoping that these starting pitchers can go deep into games so they give our middle relief and our high leverage arms some rest. But yeah, that's what we need, folks. And we're going to get some timely hits. We're going to start knocking some runners in when we have runners in scoring position. I'm calling it now. We're going to be positive. We're not going to stay negative for too long, folks. But yeah, this has been the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Please follow us at Space Cadet Sports, spacecadetsports.substack.com. I'm Paul Salazar Jr. at Paul Salazar Jr. Hit us up, subscribe, like, rate, and review. Keep your head up, and peace.